Snow fell inside the walls of Winterfell like a hush settling over a crowded hall, soft and inevitable, each flake swirling in its own quiet dance before kissing timber, stone, and the dark earth beneath. It was the kind of snowfall that muffled sound so thoroughly that torchbearers grew wary of their own breathing, and stable hands paused to peer into the thickening night as though an unseen host might loom beyond the drifts. Moonlight glazed every rampart and roof with brittle silver, but the deepest shadows belonged to the God's Wood, where towering sentinel trees creaked in the wind and the heart tree's face glimmered a ghostly white. Arya Stark stood at the edge of the bridge between the first keep and the God's Wood, her breath fogging before her lips. She had crept from her bedchamber in the dead of night, dawn still hours away, drawn by a prickling at the base of her skull she could not name. It was neither fear nor full curiosity, rather a summons humming through marrow and sinew, tugging her toward the red leaves and silent pool as surely as a string drawn taut. Beneath her rough-spun cloak, she wore trews and a plain tunic, clothing meant for movement, for daring, for a girl who preferred the whisper of winter wind to the titter of septas. She glanced back once, half expecting a scolding figure, Septa Mordain, perhaps, broom in hand, or a hand upon her shoulder to steer her homeward. But Winterfell slumbered. Even the wolves had curled against one another in the kennels, muzzles dusted with frost. A voice within offered a breath of reassurance. "No one sees, little wolf. Go." Her boots sank into soft powder as she crossed beneath the arch and entered the trees. The hush deepened here. The world beyond the ring wall felt impossibly distant. Shaggy pines reared above her, branches bowed under snow, and the faintest hoot of an owl floated overhead. Arya's pulse beat in her wrists, her throat. Each step became an affirmation that she was precisely where she must be. When the statuesque heart tree came into view, its weeping eyes crimson against the alabaster of its trunk, she felt the prickling flare like embers. She knelt. Snow cushioned her knees. Even now, she did not understand the prayers her mother mumbled on crisp mornings, or the complicated litanies father offered in the God's Wood, head bowed as though hearing an answer in secret. Yet the red leaves rustled in a wind she could not feel, and something older than language pressed upon her thoughts. Protect the boy. The words were not words at all, but an impression, born on a chill that seeped straight to her heart. Arya's breath hitched, and in the surface of the quiet pool she glimpsed a shimmer. Two small shapes, one standing fierce, one lying prone, bound together by threads of pale light. She knew them at once, herself and Bran. Her brother had not opened his eyes since the fall. The castle buzzed with prayers and dread, the way hornets thrum inside a hive before a storm. Catelyn's face had tightened into something ragged. Maester Luwin's chain clinked restlessly with each failed potion. Yet somewhere in these branches, in the face carved long ago, the old gods whispered of another path, not of potions or southern maesters, but of vigilance and steel. Protect him, guard his road. A gust stirred the leaves, and the pool rippled. The twin shapes faded. Arya swallowed, startled to find tears on her lashes, though she felt no urge to weep. She pressed her small palm against the trunk. The wood felt warmer than snow should allow, pulse quick beneath her skin as though the heart tree lived with more than sap. "I will," she whispered. Her voice sounded defiant, even to her own ears, a promise hurled out into the void. The hush swallowed it. Only the distant groan of timber answered. Still, she sensed acknowledgement, like the nod of an unseen head. When Arya rose, she found her limbs steady, her heartbeat settled. Resolve filled her flats as she retraced her path, yet time felt oddly stretched. She could not tell if moments or hours passed within the Godswood's embrace. At last, she emerged onto the bridge beneath a sky paling in the east, and the castle stirred with the earliest cookfires. Snow still fell, but lighter now, dancing in the first blush of dawn. Bran's chamber smelled of tallow, damp wool, and the tang of herbs Maester Luwin infused in steaming bowls. Arya slipped inside before breakfast, unnoticed by the servants stripping soiled linens from the bed. She drew close to her brother. Bran's lashes, long and fair, fanned against cheeks the color of candle wax. His left hand lay atop a blanket, fingers curled loosely as if he might, at any moment, tighten them around a dream of climbing. She did not speak, words felt cumbersome here. Instead, she curled her pinky finger around his and squeezed, gentle but firm. "I am here." Resolve hummed in her bones. Strange how, in the hush of the godswood, she had felt small and yet colossal all at once, like a sapling entrusted with guarding a castle gate. She did not know how she might guard Bran, or from what, but knowledge was secondary to purpose. Outside, hoofs clattered. Voices rose in sleepy greeting. Arya slipped away before Catelyn arrived with her vigil's fresh worry etched upon her face. In the corridor, she pressed her back to cold stone and exhaled. The morning tasted of iron. Sword practice became altar and communion. Ser Roderick Castle's training yard rang daily with clanging steel, but Arya discovered a silence beneath the noise where focus lived, a place where each breath anchored the body and every motion hardened purpose. She practiced longer than the boys, staying after Ser Roderick dismissed them. Wooden practice sword slick with melted snow. When sweat cooled beneath her tunic, she resumed, forcing her aching arms through patterns again and again. Protect the boy. Jon Snow left for the wall only days after her night in the Godswood. The parting carved a hollow in Arya's chest, yet she caught a light behind Jon's gray eyes as he hugged her, something bright and fierce that seemed to recognize the fire in her own. He pressed needle into her palms and bent close. "Stick them with the pointy end," he murmured. His breath misted between them, but his smile warmed her to the edges of her fingers. "And watch over Bran for me." She nodded, throat too tight for words. The promise in the Godswood and Jon's charge braided together, inseparable. Once the royal party arrived, pomp and feasting thundered through Winterfell. Arya endured Septa Mordane's lectures about posture and courtesy at supper, her thoughts drifting toward ravens perched upon snow-laden branches. She noticed things she might once have missed. How Ser Jaime Lannister's gaze lingered on Bran's vacant window. How Cersei's laughter sharpened when Lady Stark's smile faltered. How the hound's helm, snarling in iron, looked over the hall like a beast surveying prey. Even the king's booming jokes seemed to carry undercurrents foreign to the small folks' cheers. But it was Prince Joffrey who snared her gut with unease. The prince watched everything with pale, assessing eyes, idle hand poised by the hilt of a jeweled sword. When he smirked, shadows lengthened. Sansa, of course, found him gallant. Arya felt only the rough prickle that had led her to the heart tree, that told her sometimes danger strutted in gold brocade. Bran's eyes opened on a gray dawn beneath roiling clouds. Arya was not present. She sparred with Micah, the butcher's boy, outside the holdfast. Later, sweaty and flushed, she dashed into Bran's chamber to find Catelyn sobbing, Robb slack-jawed, and Bran squinting against candlelight as though waking from an endlessly layered dream. His first smile in weeks belonged to Arya. She saw it form, small but certain, when her footfalls thudded over the threshold. She crossed to him, gripping his thin shoulders as tears leapt unbidden to her lashes. The relief that flooded her veins carried equal parts joy and warning. He lived, yet his road ahead would not be gentle. The gods had chosen her to guard, not simply rejoice. When Bran drifted to sleep again, she sat on the floor beside his bed, back against the wall, needle across her lap. Catelyn eyed her wordlessly. There was a question in Mother's gaze, but Arya held it with steady calm. Perhaps her newfound stillness answered, for Catelyn sighed, brushed Bran's hair from his brow, and let the matter rest. The journey south changed everything. Maester Luwin pronounced Bran too fragile to ride, so he would remain behind with Mother, news that tore fresh worry into Catelyn's face. Father summoned Arya and Sansa to the Great Hall to explain the honor and burden of traveling to King's Landing. "Your sister will be presented at court," he told Arya, gaze gentle but firm, "and you will learn the ways of the realm." The phrase felt like wool on Arya's tongue, scratchy, constraining. Yet when Father's hand settled on her shoulder, something flickered in his eyes, as though he had glimpsed, for a heartbeat, the girl kneeling in the Godswood under falling snow. "Arya," he said quietly, "look after yourself. And your sister. Your brothers will rely on letters from King's Landing more than you know." Arya nodded. She thought of Bran, of the ravens whispering over Winterfell's battlements, of the Heart Tree's silent command. Protect the boy. Bran remained north, but her duty might stretch further than walls could bind. That night, she visited the Godswood once more. Snow had ceased, leaving icicles dangling from the mossy boughs. Moonlight trembled against the pool. Arya knelt, leather gloves scraping bark as she laid needle across her thighs like an offering. "I'm leaving," she breathed. "Bran will be here, but if danger waits on the road, tell me." Wind curled around her ears, rustling branches. For a moment she smelled weirwood sap, sweet and coppery. Then silence. Yet, as she rose to leave, a raven settled upon a stone beside the pool. Its black eyes fixed on her, unblinking. Under the moon it looked carved from obsidian, sharper than shadow. Arya paused, puzzled. The raven cawed once, hoarse, low, almost weary, before launching skyward. It circled thrice and vanished into night. She walked back to her chamber, certain she would see ravens again before long. Departing Winterfell felt like skinning away a layer of self. Arya rode behind her father's column of guards, columns of dust rising as hooves broke the crusty remnants of snow upon the King's Road. She stole glances north each morning, tasting an ache that refused to dull. The knowledge that Bran lay abed under Maester Luwin's care while she rode further from him. But every league south presented new signs to sharpen her vigilance. A swirl of leaves shaped like direwolf jaws across the trail. Ravens gathering on bare branches whenever Prince Joffrey's laughter floated from the front ranks. A dream in which the weirwood's face bled, carving a crimson river that swept Bran into darkness until Arya dove after him, clutching his wrist. She woke clutching the bedroll, heart hammering, and whispered thanks when dawn broke. Micah traveled with them only until the Trident, chopping firewood and jesting with Arya in the evenings. She trusted his easy grin, his quick, darting feet. They practiced with sticks by torchlight. Protect the boy echoed in her strikes, her parries. Each thud of wood against wood promised she would face worse than branches someday. And worse arrived. Joffrey's game beside the river turned sudden and brutal. Wood became steel, make-believe became blood. Arya thrust herself between prince and butcher's boy without hesitation. The memory would burn in her bones. Needle flashing like sliver of sunlit ice, Micah's startled cry, the hound's looming form, and the frantic clamor of hoofbeats as Micah fled. When it was over, when Nymeria darted into reeds and darkness, when the hound rode back with crimson dripping from his axe, Arya tasted ashes in her mouth. Guilt warred with fury. Sorrow churned with certainty. She had witnessed violence raw and real, how swiftly life could spill like water on stones. This is the world that waits, the gods seem to whisper. Steel and fong and sudden endings. Guard your road. That night, beside a meager campfire miles from the scene, her hands shook. She pressed palms together until tremors ceased. Then she rose, crossed the camp to Bran's wolf, who lay restless by Robb's empty pallet. Summer lifted his head, sniffing Arya's fingers. In his golden eyes she saw Bran's spirit, bright and stubborn. "I'll keep him safe," she murmured to the wolf. Summer huffed softly as though understanding. King's Landing bloomed fetid and hot, its streets reeking of fish guts and spilled wine, but its court glimmered like a blade within silk. Arya's first glimpse of the Red Keep, perched crimson above the city, conjured memories of blood on leaves. Marble corridors felt colder than Winterfell's stone despite southern heat, and the courtiers' smiles gleamed sharper than daggers. Sansa drifted toward Queen Cersei's inner circle, her laughter chiming like glass. Arya felt her own silence deepen. She trained in secret with Syrio Farrell, the former First Sword of Bravos, who taught her to move like shadow, to listen to breath before hearing words. A water dancer hears truth in silence, he told her, stepping lightly as an egret upon a reed. Arya thought of the heart tree's hush and nodded. She would weave the two arts together, the old god's stillness and Bravosi grace. Nights soon brimmed with uneasy dreams. She walked through Weirwood's scorched black, their eyes bleeding tar. She saw Bran seated upon a skeletal throne of dark roots, ravens swirling overhead. In each dream, a figure cloaked in lion's pelts stalked nearer, torch in hand, setting the roots aflame while Bran's legs bound themselves to the throne, wooden and still. Arya woke with her knife drawn, heart slamming. She began writing letters north, careful and spare. Bran, keep to the tower during storms. Watch Summer's eyes for signs. Robb, double the guards on the walls beyond what Ser Roderick orders. She dared not write the more ominous omens. Maester Luwin would scoff. Yet whenever the ravens arrived, Arya watched each bird's passage with sharpened attention, certain the gods sent warnings northward in fluttering wings. The tourney for Prince Joffrey's name day brought a tide of knights clad in bright steel and darker intentions. Arya perched amid hay bales behind the lists, needle hidden beneath a cloak, observing. She paid little heed to banners or boasts. Instead, she listened for the tone beneath speech, the twitch of a gauntlet hand near a hilt, the flicker of annoyance when a glance strayed to her father's men. When justers unhorsed, when lances shattered and cheers rose, Arya's pulse remained even, until she spotted the man in golden armor, hound-shaped helm beneath one arm, speaking quietly with Ser Jaime. Their laughter felt the same pitch as that night along the Trident. Red danced again across Arya's vision, and her grip on needle tightened until knuckles whitened. Sirio's voice echoed, "Fear cuts deeper than swords." She breathed through the memory, through rage, until her palm loosened and her gaze steadied. The hound gave no notice to the small figure among bales, but Arya marked every line of his movements. If the gods destined paths, sooner or later those paths would cross. Letters from Winterfell arrived bearing mixed tidings. Bran learning to ride specially crafted saddles, designs drawn by a strange boy at the wall. Robb's growing restlessness. Lady Catelyn's absence on some secret errand. Arya read them by candlelight, each word a thread connecting her to home, to purpose. When Sansa teased her for the ink smudges on her fingers, Arya merely smiled. A thin, knowing curve. She would protect Bran whether south or north, steel or ink. Days blurred into court intrigue. Sirio called the game behind the game. Arya found herself gliding through halls, unseen, listening. She heard names whispered, Littlefinger, Varys, schemes forming like frost on glass. She stole glimpses of parchment on Queen Cersei's desk when the doorway lay unguarded. She began mapping alliances the way she once mapped stable passages. Who visited whom, who concealed letters in sleeves, who shared wine at dusk. Yet amid secret knowledge grew a deeper certainty. I cannot guard Bran from shadows with whispers alone. Danger brewed like storm clouds, and she was separated by leagues. Even if she raced north this instant, she could not reach him before darker forces did. That night she dreamt of wolves. For great direwolves stood in a circle of snow around the heart tree. One, Summer, threw back his head and howled a note that vibrated along the marrow of the world. A fifth shadow, smaller, quicker, pelted around the ring, eyes blazing indigo. Guide him, little sister, the howl seemed to say. Guide him through the dark. She woke before dawn and slipped into practiced stillness, mind open. And in that hush she sensed Bran. Not his body, but a gleam of awareness, a spark half asleep yet yearning north of consciousness. Images tumbled. A three-eyed crow upon a broken branch, tunnels beneath Winterfell's crypts, ice cracking on a black lake. Arya inhaled slowly, matching the rhythm of her heart to the silent cadence of unseen drums. Perhaps protection need not be physical. Perhaps the gods meant for their souls to weave together across distance, for her blade and kings landing to complement Bran's awakening in the far north. The thought steadied something fragile inside her. Weeks later, whispers swelled around the court. The hand of the king investigated a bastard, a book of lineage guarded by dust. Scribes scurried. Laughter curdled. Arya watched father's brow furrow, the set of his jaw when he thought none looked upon him. She knew that posture, winter settling over the heart.
Danger edge de closer.
She began leaving needle beneath her pillow each night, as though expecting foes to emerge through walls. One evening she overheard Varys's soft purr behind a tapestry. The wolf's cubs growing restless, my lord. More words lost to fabric, but the gist weighed heavy. Wolves, cubs, her family. Again, Arya crept into the godswood, this time the garden of twisted myrtles and elms inside the Red Keep. No heart tree grew here, no bloody face to confide in, yet the air still hummed faintly beneath the gilded lanterns. She knelt in patchy moonlight and whispered, "I don't know the path. Help me see." Silence. Then, faintly, wind off Blackwater Bay rattled dry leaves overhead. In the hush, she realized the path could not be shown whole. She must carve each footstep herself. Protecting Bran might mean hunting truths from shadows, striking where foes did not yet suspect danger, carrying Winterfell's wolf blood into the lion's den. When she rose, determination clung like a second skin. Royal hunters discovered the direwolf ladies' remains outside the city, story crafted to flatter Joffrey's cruelty. Sansa's grief fractured the sisterly bond thinner than cobweb, but Arya swallowed her own sorrow, burying it beside Nymeria's absence. Even grief, she learned, could become armor once hammered by will. Letters from Winterfell ceased for a fortnight. Unease coiled. Arya pressed father for news, but he merely ruffled her hair and claimed riders were delayed by storms on the King's Road. She did not believe him. That night, while lanterns bobbed among the towers, she slipped through corridors with Sirio's light steps, weaving past guards, following her sense of where secrets pooled. In the lower archive, she found ledgers of shipments marked winter provisions, holdfast and iron, Andry repairs, north battlements, signs that Winterfell prepared for siege or routine. She traced inked lines until torch sputtered low. As she crept back to chambers, she glimpsed Peter Baelish ascending a stairwell, eyes hooded in thought. He paused mid-step as though sensing her passage. His lips curled almost kindly before he vanished into higher corridors. Arya pressed flat to the wall, breath shallow. The smell of lilac clung faintly behind him. He is a knife in silk, she decided, filing the knowledge away. The day everything cracked open dawned painfully bright, scalding court with harsh sunlight. Ravens arrived at the rookery before breakfast. One bore a black ribbon. Arya heard the caw in her bones and rushed toward Father Solar. Guards barred her passage, unusual, unsettling. She lingered in shadow until the door opened again, revealing Maester Pycelle clutching a scroll. His expression looked carved from stone dust. That evening, Father sought both his daughters. They found him older somehow, weathered within hours. Bran lay unconscious once more. He said, fevered after a sudden collapse of equal parts illness and nightmare. Robb summoned banners, and Catelyn had not yet returned. Word traveled slower than dread. He spoke gently, but every syllable tolled like a bell. Sansa wept. Arya felt hollow, yet deeper still burned the command beneath her skin. Protect the boy. She swallowed. Send me north, she said. Father blinked, surprised. I can ride hard. I can reach Bran. Arya, the roads are not. Then let me write. Let me send what I know. She told him of Joffrey's cruelty, the hound's brutality, Baelish's whispers. She confessed she had observed men in golden cloaks meeting at dusk beyond the stables. She spoke of ravens gathering when danger approached. Words spilled until her throat rasped. When silence settled, Father regarded her as though seeing someone unfamiliar yet dear. You've grown sharper than my swordsmith ever forged, he said softly. Very well, we cannot fly you north, but your letters will ride with my fastest couriers. And I will heed your counsel here. Relief and fear tangled. Arya bowed her head. She felt again the Godswood's hush, the promise binding her small hand to Bran's sleeping fingers. Guard his road. She had thought it meant blades alone. Now she understood. Truth guarded as fiercely. She would track lies the way a hunter stalked deer through snow. Slow, patient, relentless. Night fell. Within her narrow bed, Arya closed her eyes. The city outside rustled like silk against a blade. Yet beneath that murmur she sensed the weirwood's presence, distant and steadfast as the North Star. Sleep pulled her into dreams where she walked alongside a wolf with summer gold eyes, along corridors of ice and memory. Bran walked beside her, though his legs did not move. He glided serene, fingertips brushing bark that grew from stone. Ahead loomed a door wrought of roots. When Arya placed her palm upon it, she felt warmth spread to her elbows. The tang of iron, the hush of snow. Not yet, little sister, the wolf seemed to say. But soon. She woke at dawn, drawn breath steady and clear. A raven tapped the sill. She opened the casement. It hopped onto her wrist, black eyes glittering. A band upon its leg bore a scrap of parchment. She loosened the knot with quick fingers. The message within was short, sigil of Winterfell beside scrawled words in Maester Luwin's hand. Bran lives. Fever breaks. He calls for you, sees you in dreams. Trust the trees. Arya's vision blurred with sudden wetness. She stroked the raven's sleek feathers and whispered thanks. Somewhere beneath the red keep, the roots of an old world still found her. She dipped quill in ink. Her letter flowed swift. A map of secrets, of players, of danger. She sealed it with wax stamped by a direwolf's head father lent her, and ran through corridors to the rookery. The raven balanced on her shoulder like night incarnate. As the bird cut skyward, wings beating against a dawn-painted rose and gold, Arya Stark stood upon the battlements and breathed winter air into her lungs. Steel lay at her hip, resolve in her breast, and the old gods within her blood. The road ahead rippled with peril, but she would walk it light as falling snow, blade poised, eyes wide, heart steady. Far to the north, a boy with shattered legs dreamed of flight, and somewhere between them a thread of spirit pulsed, unbreakable. Winter had chosen its guardians. The game behind the game was only beginning. The rising sun crept across the lacquered floorboards of Arya's small chamber like liquid copper, but she was already awake, perched cross-legged upon the sill. A frayed black sash, one of Sirio's practice ribbons, bound her hair from her eyes. Dawn patrols clanked in the courtyard below, yet her hearing sifted past their footfalls to the quieter breaths of sleeping retainers and the faint rush of wind in the high banners. Needle lay across her thighs, its edge still carrying a smear of wax from the candle she had sharpened it against at first light. Sirio taught that even a razor must be honed against something softer than steel if one wished to sense each flaw in the edge. She inhaled, let the sounds settle. Somewhere in the warren of passages beneath the Tower of the Hand, a rat skittered against stone. 2 stories above, a guard shifted weight from one boot to another, and further, deeper, like a heartbeat far away, a low murmur of voices rode the air through hidden vents. She stilled herself until the syllables clarified. Varys's smooth whisper, another voice heavier, foreign. Illyrio Mopatus. They spoke of timelines, of gold, of dragons sleeping too long. Arya caught the word wolves, a passing mention. Before the sound faded, she exhaled. Even the walls breathed secrets. Down in the training yard, hours later, she let those secrets fuel each lunge and sidestep. Sirio glided around her, wooden blade tapping, deflecting, never striking flesh yet constantly demanding she adjust her center. He smiled when their sticks locked, his dark eyes glinting. A cat of the canals may run from the tide, he murmured. But the wolf pup must learn the river's language. You listen, girl, yes? I see it in the set of your shoulders. Arya merely nodded and flowed low under his riposte, sweeping his ankle. Sirio hopped neatly clear, chuckling. Good. Soon you will hear water inside stone. That evening she inked another letter north. She omitted talk of foreign whispers and dragons, fearing the words might brand her a fanciful child. But she warned of lion banners fletched with arrows, of golden helms gathering in wine-scented rooms long after curfew. She sealed it with father's borrowed signet and carried it herself to the rookery. The raven she chose bore a mottled white feather amid midnight plumage. It clicked its beak, as if impatient, when she tied the message. Fly straight, she told it. The bird leapt into the copper dusk, wings beating toward snows she could almost taste. Bran Stark smelled pine sap before he opened his eyes. It clung to the back of his throat, mingling with the copper tang of the heart tree's deep red leaves. He floated, not dreaming, yet not fully awake. Somewhere between the feel of linen sheets and the rush of cold air across a wolf's snout. Summer's snout. The dire wolf padded through Winterfell's godswood, each step sending powdery snow puffing around his paws. Bran saw through Summer's eyes. Moonlight silvering the pool, the slow blink of an owl high upon a branch. He tasted fur-muffled scents. Mouse beneath leaf litter, stale smoke drifting from a distant chimney, steel oil on a guard's gauntlet at the gatehouse. A twig snapped. Summer's ears flicked. Bran sensed, more than saw, a flicker of movement near the broken tower, where ravens often perched upon the crumbled stones. He guided Summer closer, heart hammering in a body that lay in a bed far away. A man in a hood knelt there, prying at loose masonry. The wolf's lip curled. The hooded head jerked up. Pale lamplight from a shuttered lantern gleamed on coarse blonde whiskers and a familiar scowl. Ser Roderick's new sentry, Aaron, one of the men who always grumbled when shifts stretched too long. But Aaron was far from his post, chipping at stones like a thief. Summer growled. Aaron scrambled back, dropped something metallic that clinked, then fled into shadows between wards. Bran surged forward, but a tug yanked him back into his frail flesh. His eyes flew open to darkness. A lantern guttered on the table. Maester Luwin dozed in the chair, quill fallen beside his ledger. Bran's fists clenched beneath quilts. He must tell someone. Yet the memory of Summer's power lingered, intoxicating, and for a heartbeat he felt the wolf's strength ripple beneath his useless legs. He heard shuffling feet in the corridor. Old Nan approaching with midnight broth. Bran closed his eyes again, feigning sleep. Dreams were easier than explanations. Across leagues of forest and field, Arya dreamt the same scent of pine and copper. She stood within Winterfell's godswood, snow swirling sideways on a sharp wind. Bran sat at the pool's edge, but not motionless. His legs dangled into the mirror-still water, toes drawing ripples. He smiled wolfishly at her. "Come closer," he said. She did. The water darkened, the ripples widening to become rings of ink that lapped at roots. Bran reached down and pulled a raven from the pool, slick and shining. "One letter is not enough," he said. "You must send more than words." When he opened his palm, the raven took flight, but its wings beat soundlessly. Instead, the rustle of pages echoed through the godswood. Arya woke with quill-stained fingertips, though she had not gone to bed with ink. Candlelight flickered. She rubbed her thumb across the stains and whispered Bran's name. Outside her shutter, a single raven perched on the sill, its breath ghosting the glass despite the night's warmth. It watched her until dawn. News of Lady Catelyn's unexpected arrival at the capital swept the Red Keep like a stirred hornet's nest. Arya observed from alcoves. Men in black and gold relaying messages, courtiers whispering that the Stark matriarch had traveled in secrecy, that she bore dire accusations. She learned more than Sansa, who flitted around grand September luncheons oblivious, that Mother met in secret with Ser Roderick and Lord Baelish, that a dagger of Valyrian steel lay at the heart of their discourse. That night, Arya stalked the corridor outside Littlefinger's apartments, balanced upon bare toes, listening at the oak-paneled door. Inside, Baelish spoke to someone she could not see. "The Hand's lady wife will sail north come first tide, no wiser than before. The game remains with pieces as they stand. The boy must stay asleep." Arya's gut knottet. Bran. She swallowed fury and retreated before guards returned, but the danger felt no longer like distant thunder. It pressed close, sour and hot in her lungs. She sprinted to Father's chambers only to find them empty. His personal guard said Lord Stark had ridden to the Street of Steel. Arya hesitated. She could still warn him. She knew the way through back alleys, shadowed steps trod with Sirio's lightness. She chose the darker route, weaving through the Red Keep's servants' tunnels. Emerging beyond the gate the locals called the Lion's Mouth. The Street of Steel pulsed with hammer clangs and furnace glow even at this late hour, but Father's retinue wasn't there. Instead, she encountered Yoren of the Night's Watch, sullen as ever, who spat and told her the Hand had returned inland by way of the river. She pivoted, heart thumping, feeling time slip away like water through cupped fingers. When she finally reached the Tower of the Hand, torches guttered low and father's door was barred. She rapped in frantic rhythm. Desmond, his guard, cracked it open and peered bleary-eyed, then stiffened at once and admitted her. Eddard Stark sat by the hearth, leg bandaged, face pale. The splintered shaft of a spear leaned against the wall, still slick with drying blood. His blood. Arya's breath fled. "What have you done to yourself?" she gasped. Father's eyes softened despite weariness. "A fall, nothing more." He motioned her closer. "Come, little one." Arya approached, though fear coiled around her spine. She wanted to rail at him, to spill Baelish's words, Bran's wolf dream, her own nightmares. But one look at the tight lines around his mouth told her he carried burdens heavier than steel. She swallowed and simply pressed her small hand over his. His fingers curled, warm yet trembling. "Many nets tighten here," he said quietly, as though to himself more than her. "I pray we do not drown in them." Arya leaned against his knee and stared into the fire until her eyes burned. When Desmond ushered her out, Father's sigh followed her like smoke. Half a moon later, ravens exploded from Winterfell's rookery at dawn, startling Bran from half-sleep. He jerked upright, then grimaced at the ache in limbs that could no longer remember weight. A lattice of sunlight striped his coverlet. Outside, summer paced restlessly. Bran reached to the bedpost where a carved wolf's head crowned the top. The touchstone Maester Luwin encouraged him to grasp when despair threatened. He breathed slowly, counting heartbeats as the Maester had taught. Robb stormed in without knocking, parchment crumpled in his fist. "Mother's letter," he said, voice edged like unsheathed steel. "Father is injured, surrounded by vipers, and we sit idle." Bran's heart plummeted. "How badly injured?" "Not mortal," Robb answered, but fury trembled beneath the words. "Yet danger sharpens daily." Bran's mind flashed. Hooded Aaron at the tower, Littlefinger's dagger, Baelish's whispers to keep the boy asleep. He drew a breath that felt too small for his chest. "We must strengthen the walls," he said. "Post guards where no one expects. Cellar stairs, the Lichyard path, the broken tower. Someone pried at its stones." Robb's brow creased. "Stones? Last night." Bran hesitated. Should he reveal Summer's sight? Luwin called such dreams fancy, but old Nen once told him the stories of skin changers weren't mere tales. And Arya's letters. She trusted ravens and omens. Bran squared his shoulders. Summer saw it. He met Robb's skeptic gaze without flinching. "Through me." Robb stared long enough that Bran feared ridicule, but his brother only exhaled and nodded once. "Then we watched the broken tower." He brushed Bran's hair back, gentle. "Rest, little brother. I will handle guards." As the door closed, Bran sank onto pillows, heart thudding. Across the yard, Summer growled at shadows until the stable hands avoided that stretch entirely. While northern ramparts bristled, King's Landing suffocated beneath a weight of secrets. Varys's little birds chirped so feverishly that even small folk spoke of chairs scraped across marble at midnight, of dagger wounds cloaked by courtly smiles. Ser Barristan the bold rode patrol across city walls each dawn. Arya sometimes raced up the winding parapet stair until she spied his silver-white hair glinting above the parapets. He looked a relic of a better age, yet even his presence felt fragile amid red stone choked by intrigues sown like nightshade. Syrio sensed her distraction. During drills, he tapped her wrist whenever her gaze drifted. "Look at me, girl," he said, frown etched deep. "The cat chases no shadows while dogs snap at her tail. Here now." Arya flushed and redoubled focus, weaving through sword-dancing steps until sweat soaked her collar. At lesson's end, Syrio offered a flask of water and a rare softness. "Fear rides your shoulders. Use him as a horse, but do not let him ride you." She nodded, though the words felt slippery. That night she sat upon her narrow mattress, quill poised above parchment. She wrote not to Robb or Maester Luwin this time, but directly to Bran. She told him of Syrio's lessons, of father's injury and creeping shadows, of a dagger forged in dragonfire that someone claimed meant for him. She described her dream of Bran pulling ravens from black water. She wrote, "If you feel me in dreams, know I feel you too." She sealed the letter with wax impressed by the direwolf Eddard fashioned for her years ago from an old coin, then crept to the rookery. Inside, the mottled raven awaited, as though expecting her. She tied the scroll. Before releasing it, she pressed her forehead to its beak. "Fly swift," she whispered. The raven croaked, a sound like flint striking steel, and vanished into the star-rich dark. The raven reached Winterfell 5 days later, wings ragged from storms. Bran's hands shook as he unfolded the vellum. Her words pulsed alive. Warnings, courage, the promise of unseen threads binding them. He pressed his thumb to the ink until it smudged, as though to feel her heartbeat there. That night, Bran tried again to walk in Summer's skin. Sleep came fitfully, but when it took him, he plunged straight into the direwolf. Stone rough pads striking frosted ground, breath pluming silver. He loped along the eastern ramparts, senses prickling. Near the broken tower, an orange glow spilled from the base stones. Lantern light behind loosened masonry. A hushed clatter of metal. Summer crouched beneath a snow-heavy arch, hackles bristling. A narrow passage yawned beyond the uprooted stones. One Bran had never seen before, invisible from the courtyard. Summer padded within. The corridor smelled damp, ancient. Voices echoed ahead. Shipments reached the twins once more. Greyjoy's men smuggle the spice in casks. No suspicion. If Stark boys sniff too close, they'll join their mother in the wolf's den beyond here. My dagger kept silent once. It will again. Summer snarled. The voices hushed. A torch bobbed toward him. Aaron again, companionless, sword half-drawn. Bran felt the surge of wolf fury, strength unfettered, and sprang, jaws wide. The torch flew, sputtering. Steel rang on the stone as Aaron screamed. Summer's teeth found flesh, copper-flooded tongue and throat. Bran tasted blood, hot and shocking. But Aaron's shriek faded into black silence as Bran's consciousness ripped free, slamming back into his frail body with a cry that woke Maester Luwin. The Maester rushed to his bedside, but Bran could only pant, heart galloping. Blood passage, Aaron. He seized Luwin's chain, forcing words through trembling lips. Guard tower, assassin. Within the hour, Robb led a squad of guards to the broken tower. They found Aaron sprawled bleeding, left hand mangled, torch guttered in a wine-damp pool. He babbled of a monster's jaws. In the dark passage, no man recalled digging. Robb sealed the corridor under stone and iron, posted 4 archers round the clock, and sent ravens to every bannerman. The north is not safe. Wake watch. His letter south flew on the same wings as father's earlier warnings rode north. 3 days following, King's Landing's air tasted of rain. Arya strode beside Syrio across the practice yard when a page breathlessly announced the hand required her presence. She found Ned Stark standing by his desk, newly delivered raven in hand, jaw set. He dismissed everyone but her. "Your letter reached Bran," he said without preamble. Arya's pulse leapt. "He writes that your words helped him see the truth of an assassin's plot. He walked in Summer's skin to reveal a traitor. He studied her, pride and dread warring behind gray eyes that mirrored winter skies long past thawing. Whatever gifts the old gods weave between you two, heed them." Arya felt something kindle, acknowledgement, a small torch lit in a vast night. But father's next words chilled her. "The court moves against your sisters, and I must soon leave this city." He limped to the window, staring toward the white sails upon the Blackwater. "Yet webs and snare. I fear departure may be denied." He turned back, kneeling so their eyes were level. "If things go ill, you must flee. Follow Syrio to the stables. Seek Yoren, he will know the road north. Do you understand?" Her throat bobbed. She thought of Bran, Robb, mother, and needle hidden within the bedpost. "I understand." Father tugged a leather pouch from his belt and pressed it into her hands. "Heavy, cool silver stags. Bribe what help you need. Trust few. right the moment you find safety. A lump lodged behind her sternum. She wrapped arms around his neck, hugged fiercely. He stroked her hair. "I'm proud of you," he whispered, voice rough. "You guard more than a brother. You guard our name." Arya breathed in the scent of pine tar and parchment that clung to his cloak and tried to memorize it. Storm clouds cracked over the city 2 nights later, thunder rolling like drums of war. Ned Stark's guard doubled, yet gossip winged swifter. The king gone hunting, the hand confronting the queen, the sudden recall of the gold cloaks to barracks. Sansa wept in her chamber, abandoned by Joffrey's courtiers. Arya packed a small satchel, bread, water skin, the pouch of coin, father's old map, then slid needle into a sewn pocket of her cloak. She crept through service corridors until she reached the armory's side yard, where a covered passage ran downslope toward the stable rows. Lightning flickered overhead. In each flash she glimpsed scurrying shapes. Servants, guards, maybe spies. She ducked behind a hay cart and scanned for Syrio. Rain pelted down, drumming her hood. In the gloom, a shadow detached itself and strode toward her. Too tall, too broad. The Hound. He paused notes away, torch flaring across his scarred face. Rain hissed against his helm. Arya's heart slammed. Did he see her? She gripped needle, expecting the rasp of steel. But he only stared beyond her, into the storm, as though haunted by demons no torch could banish. He spat, muttered something about royal brats and blind men, and stalked on toward the keep. Arya exhaled a breath she hadn't known she held. When the yard cleared, she dashed through puddles to the stables, only to find the back gate barred by 2 gold cloaks and Syrio nowhere. She retreated under an overhang, teeth chattering. Perhaps Yoren still waited at the mud gate. She skirted arcades, slipping where marble slicked beneath rain. From the great hall echoed shouts and the clatter of halt pikes. She glimpsed father escorted between lines of gold cloaks, foot injured, but head high. Cersei walked beside him, triumphant. The air tasted like iron. Arya's world lurched. She pressed back into a colonnade as the procession passed. Father's gaze lifted briefly, caught her, and for the barest instant something like apology flickered. "Run," it said without words. "Live." Tears blurred stone into ghost shapes. She spun and fled. That same moment far in the north, Bran sat by his window, breath fogging glass despite summer storms beyond the wall. He felt a yank inside him, like something as precious as air being ripped away. He clutched the window ledge, dizzy. Summer raised his muzzle to the sky and howled. Bran squeezed his eyes shut. He saw Arya, small and fierce, running with a sword too light for war and too sharp for childhood. Flames flickered, steel glinted. He saw father bound in silk chains, lions roaring, doves scattering. Panic crashed over him. He cried out, and Maester Luwin rushed in, thinking Bran's fever returned. But Bran's cry was not from pain. It was a signal like a horn on the battlements. He pushed away Luwin's fussing hands. "Send ravens," he demanded, eyes bright with an authority beyond his years. "To the airy white harbor, Barrowton. Tell them watch the southern roads. The lions have bared their claws." Luwin paled. "My prince, do it." Bran's voice cracked but held. Outside, Summer's howl echoed across courtyards. Somewhere in the kennels, Shaggy Dog and Grey Wind answered. Robb burst in, sword belt askew. "What is it?" "Father's in danger," Bran said. "Arya's alone. We must help." Robb's jaw clenched. He turned to the maester. "Send those ravens. Ready arms at the Great Keep. No one enters Winterfell without our leave." Luwin hesitated only a heartbeat before nodding. He hurried to the rookery. In King's Landing, Arya ducked into the damp reek of flea-bottom alleys, candle smoke and gutter runoff swirling around her boots. She pressed deeper, hugging shadows, until the Red Keep loomed only as a crimson smear against the storm-black sky. She found Yoren beneath a sagging archway where rats gnawed on offal tossed from a butcher's stall. He cursed when he saw her soaked cloak, then cursed louder when she told him of the hand's capture. But he gestured her under a cloak of his own, rough wool smelling of horse and charcoal. Gold cloaks comb the riverfront, he growled. Best slip now, not at dawn. He guided her to a squat tin warehouse by the Blackwater's edge where stinking pelts dried on racks. Inside, 2 other boys huddled. One named Lami Greenhands, the other Hot Pie. Yoren's recruits for the wall. Arya shrank into the gloom, braid dripping. She didn't speak. She was a wolf among strays, but for now they shared a den. Yoren knelt before the shuttered door. Listen, girl, he muttered, voice gravelly. When we ride north, keep low. Speak little. A sword like that draws eyes. Hide it. He nodded toward Needle silhouetted beneath her cloak. I know a boy's name, not hers, when I see it. But no matter. In the black of the brothers, all names burn away. Choose a new one. Arya clenched Needle's grip. Choose a new one? Abandon Arya Stark? Yet the Godswood's hush echoed. Guard his road. She closed her eyes. Bran's face surfaced. Pale, determined, seated by Winter's window. She inhaled damp leather scent and decided. Arya, she said softly. Arya the orphan boy. Yoren grunted approval. Keep your head down, Arya. Thunder boomed. Beyond the warehouse slats, a horn on the city wall sounded, distant but urgent. War or warning, it mattered little. Arya Stark. No, Arya the orphan, huddled with strangers and felt the bone-deep truth. Roads twisted, but she still walked the path laid by snow and blood that night beneath the weirwood. Protect Bran. Guard their name. Whatever shape the world forced upon her, the promise held. She curled against a bale of salt-stiff hides, hand on needle. Rain hammered the roof like drumbeats. For the first time since Father's summons, she allowed exhaustion to catch her. Riding the edge of sleep, dreaming of wolves racing side by side through frozen mists. One on 4 powerful legs, the other on light Bravosi feet, bound by a silver thread of moonlit resolve. Days later, northern ravens shrieked across gray skies, carrying dire warnings to lords great and small. Robb Stark called banners. Horns echoed across hills as Karstarks, Hornwoods, Tall Hearts readied spears. Bran watched from his tower as columns of men formed like dark rivers, streaming south. When Robb knelt before him to bid farewell, Bran gripped his brother's sleeve. Find father. Find Arya. Robb's eyes lingered on the useless length of Bran's legs beneath furs. He nodded grimly. We bring them home. The courtyard roared with hoofbeats. Bran sat in a wheeled chair Maester Luwin constructed, Summer pacing beside. As the gates peeled open, Bran closed his eyes, whispered a silent prayer to tree and snow, to old gods who heard even children. Guide them, guard them. The prayer threaded north and south, through roots and ravens and dreams, beyond stone and sea, until it brushed the mind of a small beggar boy clutching a sword in a straw-littered cart as it rattled through King's Gate under cover of dawn. Arya's lashes fluttered. She thought she heard Bran's voice, distant but clear. Hold fast, sister. The pack still runs. Her fingers tightened on needle. The cart rolled on toward the King's Road. The song of wheels on wet cobbles became the heartbeat of a new path, one she would tread through blood and shadow, guided by the memory of snow falling on a heart tree's silent face and the vow whispered there. Protect the boy. Guard his road. Wind howled off the Blackwater long before dawn, rattling the shutters of a tanner's loft where Yoren had stowed his ragged charges for the few fitful hours between flight and road. Arya woke first, heartbeat drumming in the hollow of her throat, a prickling sense that every breath drawn inside the city walls risked discovery. She slipped from the straw pallet, careful not to rouse Lami or Hot Pie, and unlatched a narrow casement. The chill that struck her cheeks smelled of wet river stones and distant storms, a wind-borne summons to be gone. Beyond the slick slate roofs, King's Landing still glittered, a mass of lanterns and jeweled tower tops, but the Red Keep crouched against the sky like a blood-dark lion. Somewhere inside those walls, Father lingered in fetters of velvet lies. She bit her lip hard enough to taste iron, then tied the last loop of her makeshift jerkin's laces and tucked needle against her spine beneath a patched cloak Yoren had scrounged. Downstairs, the wagon waited. A squat, two-wheeled cart draped in netting meant to hide its living cargo. Rorge with his filed teeth, Biter who hissed at torchlight, a pox-scarred baker's apprentice from Old Town, a wine-stained septon stripped of vows, two nameless boys barely older than Rickon, all bound for the wall. In their midst sat Arya, indistinguishable from scrawny gutter snipes save the steady gleam in gray eyes that watched every alley as if expecting it to bear fangs. Yoren lashed bundles, checked mule harness, muttered curses at the rain. Arya eased into the shadow of the wagon's canvas and breathed deep. The smell of damp hay and mule sweat beat the reek of refuse rising from Flea Bottom. When first light bled over the rooftops, Yoren clucked his tongue and clicked the mules into motion. The cart rolled through mud that sucked at wheels, its creak swallowed by the markets. Waking Din Arya crouched low, hood drawn. Gold cloaks loitered along the fishmonger's square, spears glinting wet. One turned as they passed, but Yoren lumbered on with the nod of a man too busy to bother bribing, and the guard lost interest. Soon the tall breakwater towers and salt-stiff gallows of the mud gate receded behind them. Arya the orphan boy left King's Landing a ghost, her name smothered under damp wool and road dust. Once the cart hit the King's Road proper, Yoren allowed them to trade the stench of hides for thin autumn air. Low clouds scud eastward like ragged sails. Fields gave way to oak scrub growing in stands of ochre and rust. Each tree they passed shed leaves that flurried across rutted track, clinging to mules' fetlocks. Lami moaned about damp boots. Hot Pie worried aloud whether inns ahead served pigeon pasties. Rorge spat phlegm that sizzled in puddles, daring anyone to speak. Arya held her silence, face smudged in soot, one hand tracing the hidden hilt of needle through her cloak. She measured the cart's sway, the bite of wind, the scent of distant hearth smoke, each impression a stitch in a private map of vigilance. On the second day, they overtook a merchant train hauling roasted nuts and citrus from the arbor. The carter's guards eyed Yoren's motley riders but relented at his night's watch badge. Still, whispers scurried behind splayed fingers. The hands a rest, the mad Stark girl vanished, the prince proclaiming traitors breed traitors. Arya ducked deeper, but the words clung like burrs. She soothed rage by envisioning Braavosi footwork, Sirio's voice in her ear, low as cat whisker, quick as trout leap. When campfire lit the evening hollow, she found a clearing away from leering eyes and voiced each form with needle, slicing empty air until her breath smoked. Yoren watched from a stump, pipe ember glowing. That pretty toothpick'll churn guts same as broadsword if your arm's quick, he grunted. But mind who sees. Walls have longer tongues than stone knows. I know, she whispered. The old crow spat into leaves and left her to forms. Nights turned colder. Frost-crusted wagon spokes at dawn. Somewhere behind them, ravens must be circling the city's rumors, but on the road only wind spoke, and the scrape of whetstones against rusty blades whenever the outlaws sharpened for imagined threats. Arya slept light as hair. The snap of twigs could fling her upright, hand on needle, every muscle coursing with the old god's pulse. Dreams laced her dozes. She ran beneath white bark trunks where red leaves rained, Bran's laughter echoing. Sometimes she floated above a wide green plain where Rob's banners massed like autumn storm clouds. Sometimes she drifted under glacier-cold stars, looking down at father shivering in blackness. She woke heart pounding, certain that some part of her truly hovered there, anchored by threads older than language. 3 leagues south of the Trident, the road narrowed through an alder marsh. Mid-morning mist veiled the world half-formed. Riders could vanish 10 paces ahead. Yoren halted at the crook of a half-collapsed shrine to the Seven, sensing ambush. Men on shaggy steppe horses melted from fog. Sergeants of the gold cloaks under command of Ser Alardim, a brute whose eyes glittered pig-dark. Orders from Lord Commander Slint, Deem barked, circling. We seek a wolf bitch and the man who stole her from justice. Yoren puffed through his beard. You see no wolves here, only black crows and broken men. He gestured at the cart. Search if you've a mind to smell piss and lice. Arya's guts twisted. She pulled her hood lower, face shadowed. Deem kicked aside netting, leering at prisoners. Hot Pie stammered. Lami quivered. Deem seized Arya's chin. His thumb scraped grime, unveiling a pale strip on her cheek. Needle's point hovered in her imagination. A swift thrust above the wrist would open tendons. Asterisk. Cold washed through her. An echo of weirwood stillness. She let her shoulders slump, mouth sag slack. Like piss I smell, she mumbled, tongue thick as a half-wit's. Deem snorted, disgust curdling interest. He shoved her head away. When a coil of rope shifted in the cart, Rorge bared teeth, distracting the sergeant long enough for Yoren to step between. These wretches ride for the wall, the old crow said. Best not rob the realm of their useful shame. Deem spat dust. Tell Slint Crow's shit on his orders, Yoren added under his breath as horses wheeled off. Only when fog reclaimed hoofbeats did Arya steady her breath. Her fingers still tingled where she'd almost drawn. That night she bent over a stagnant pool reflecting branched moonlight and washed Deem's thumbprint from her face. Watching ripples still, she murmured, Needle's first kill must matter. As if Bran's ears lay within the water, the Hearttree's phantom rustled agreement in her memory. Miles north, Bran roused inside that same hush. In a feverless half-sleep, he felt the prickle of danger pass harmless as wind over fur. He gripped the wolf-head bedpost and whispered Arya's name like a secret blessing. Summer paced the corridor outside his door, tail twitching. Robb's host had ridden days earlier. Winterfell's courtyards rang lonelier now, filled with the echo of tasks done by too few. Bran wheeled along parapets each dawn, Osha pushing him when Hodder labored elsewhere. Together they inspected arrow slits, tested shuttered murder holes, measured grain storage. Osha spoke seldom, but when Bran pointed to the broken tower she nodded, saying only, Roots run deeper than stone. Her smile flashed sharp as direwolf teeth. He wondered how much she guessed of his dreams, how keen her ears were to the old tongues that whispered beneath the North's frozen skin. The ravens he had forced Maester Luwin to send returned with replies as stark as their sealed sigils. Lady Dustin pledged 50 mounted spears. Lyanna Mormont's child hand scrawled that Bear Island knows no king but the king in the north whose name is Stark. Wyman Manderly promised levy of white ships if the seas thawed. Yet every message bore unease, as though winter's shadow lengthened beyond mere season. Bran read them at the solar window, heart heavier than his years, and felt a tug as if 1,000 watching eyes nestled in snowy boughs, awaiting his word. One dusk Osha wheeled him to the godswood. The pool mirrored bruised sky. He asked, Why did the old gods choose me? I cannot stand, let alone wield ice. She crouched, hand trailing water. Stone cannot walk, yet mountains move the fate o' rivers. Her yellow eyes met his. Mayhap the gods choose those who listen, not those who stride. Bran touched the carved face, tears slipping. He heard again Arya's promise through the raven ink. Somewhere she listened too. That same hour Robb encamped outside the ruined holdfast of Moat Cailin. Host spreading like slate tide across the bog. Fires crackled under tarpoles. Banners of Karstark sunburst and Glover silver fist snapped in the chill wind. In the commander's tent the young wolf, as men had begun to name him, pored over scouts' tallies. Lannister outriders on the Green Fork, Bolton banners unaccounted, Fry tolls demanded at the Twins. Grey wind lay at his feet, muzzle flecked with marsh mud. Catelyn arrived in the night, cloak sodden, Tully trout emblazoned dull in lamplight. She embraced her son and unrolled a letter sealed with Winterfell's wax. Bran's own hand describing passageways and traitors. Bran's warning that Ned might bend under lion claws yet not break. Catelyn's mouth trembled as she traced her youngest son's careful strokes. Such grown words. She turned to Robb. We march at dawn, she said. Robb's counsel erupted. Bolstering flanks, crossing sooner, swelling supply lines. But at the heart of the tent Catelyn and Robb shared one unspoken truth. The pack must shield its wounded, or scatter and die. Beyond canvas, clouds shredded to reveal a phantom moon. Gray wind lifted his head, ears pricked. Far off across leagues, summer answered. A low moan threading marsh and forest until silence bound them. In the black cells beneath the Red Keep, Ned Stark jerked awake. He sat shackled in straw, joints aching, Yet for one breath he smelled pine and snow. He recalled a night many lifetimes past when Arya had stood small and stubborn beneath the heart tree, and he knew, as solid as steel, that his children still breathed freedom beyond lion reach. The knowing filled him with fierce calm. When the jailer brought thin soup, Ned drank, unbowed. Varys visited later, robes whispering silk through gloom. "Your Grace," the eunuch purred with wry irony. Ned merely met the spider's eyes until the master of whispers sighed. "Stubbornness is habit among wolves. If my head must decorate a spike," Ned said, voice rasped raw, "let it remind the realm what truth costs." Varys tapped slender fingers against torch bracket. "Your truth may purchase your daughter's doom." Ned's pulse hammered. Arya, missing, feral. Sansa, hostage to a boy king's vanity. He swallowed fire at the back of his throat. Varys watched sympathy flicker. Yet perhaps, with care, some part of truth can be traded. Ned spoke a question he had rehearsed in silence. "Does gold buy birds who can lead a girl from wolves' jaws?" Varys tilted his head, moonlit eyes unreadable. "There are birds," he murmured, "who owe a debt to winter over summer." Then he slipped away, leaving Ned to darkness and the faint echo of wings. No bird came that night, but Ned drifted into dream and found himself beneath Winterfell's weirwood. Arya stood opposite, clad in burlap, eyes fierce. Bran knelt between them, hands on faintly glowing roots. When Ned reached to touch his son's hair, Bran's form dissolved into wind, whipping snow into swirls that coalesced into a single white wolf bounding into star-washed sky. Arya followed, swift and sure. Ned woke with tears streaking grime. He whispered their names and felt hope anchor like newborn root into loam. Days along the King's Road blurred into mud tracks and hedgerows alive with crickets. Yoren's recruits splintered quarrels over crusts and lice, but every dusk Arya slipped away to practice. Hot Pie mocked her faint thrusts until she knocked the lad sprawling with a butt from Needle's pommel. He yelped, Rorge cackled. After that, no one questioned the orphan's silent rites. One morning as they forded a tributary of the Blue Fork, Arya glimpsed a wolf prowling the opposite bank. Gray fur mottled with pale streaks, eyes the color of broken ice. It watched her step from water, then vanished into reeds. She felt its gaze linger like a blessing. That night she dreamt through the wolf's senses, nose filled with rabbit musk, paws crunching frost. Over ridge and hollow it loped, until wide highways converged where stone dragons perched on battlements. Harrenhal's blackened towers. Fires burned inside the ruin. Lannister banners whipped in torch glow. She woke choking on smoke that wasn't there and murmured Bran's name. A raven answered from a dead branch above camp, head cocked, as though bidding her to remember. Harrenhal loomed 2 weeks later, garrison astir with rumors of northern advance. Yoren considered rerouting northwest across foothills, but the detour risked starvation. Instead, he cut through charred villages, hugging shadow. When they reached a crossroads abandoned save for bent signposts, a column of Lannister outriders thundered past, cloaks snapping crimson. Among them rode Ser Amory Lorch, armor dull with soot. His gaze swept cart and crofter cottages. Arya felt it prickle her nape but kept head bowed. The riders passed, dust choking throats. Yoren exhaled. They camped in a hollow groan with asters. Yoren posted Arya to first watch, trusting her fox-quick eyes. She crouched atop the wagon tongue, scanning Treeline. Fireflies winked. The smell of pine tar rose from mended wheel spokes. Hours stretched, moon rose. Halfway through her vigil, a rustle drew her sight to a crest of knotted roots. There stood a heart tree, the first she had seen since Winterfell, its eyes pale in moonbeam, trunk scorched by long-past flame yet living still. Blood-red leaves quivered as if the tree breathed. Arya slid from the tongue and approached, boots soundless. She pressed palm to the rough bark. Cold seeped through calluses, but below cold thrummed warmth, ancient and deep as Earth's own heart. She closed her eyes. At once she saw Bran perched atop Winterfell's rampart chair, Maester Luwin beside him, parchment in hand. Bran turned, saw her, and smiled. Words formed without mouths. the wolves gather at the twins. Hold the line, little sister. She tried replying but woke to dawn birdsong, hands still on bark. She told no one of the dream, but that morning when Lorch's scouts appeared on the horizon, Arya hissed warning a full minute before Yoren heard hoofbeats. They veered off the road, ducked beneath alder cover until the riders passed again. Yoren eyed her with new respect. "You smell danger like wolf," he said, a rare smile breaking whiskers. She tucked hair behind ear and shrugged. Soon Riverland's farmland unfurled, charred by pillage. Smoke columns dotted skyline. Refugees dragged wagons loaded with bedding and crying babes. They whispered of battles near Riverrun, Tywin's host clashing with Tully bannermen, fields littered with broken pikes. Every rumor tightened Yoren's jaw. Every mile etched older lines in Arya's face. Yet the nights belonged still to stories muttered by campfire. One dusk, the pox-scarred baker asked why Arya kept odd hours. "I guard a road," Arya said. He laughed, teeth sparse. "What road?" "The one that runs under everything, from here to the heart of the world." She tapped her chest. He called her cracked. She smiled in the dark and thought of weirwood roots weaving behind all things. By the time they neared the twins, rain had returned, sleeting sideways. Fry levies manned the gatehouses with insolent smirks, demanding coin for passage or promise of first pick among prisoners. Yoren spat at their boots, flashed his black cloak, and reminded them King Robb might soon require their good conduct. They took half his silver anyway. The bridges thumped under wagon wheels. Arya stared down at the green fork churning 20 feet below and imagined each eddy a mouth hungry for secrets. That night camp lay on the far northern bank, within sight of Fry hearth fires. Yoren told the recruits of the wall's cold welcome, of vows that stripped name and birth. Some shivered, others scoffed. Arya listened, gripping her coin pouch. Each clink of silver spoke of a path still veiled. She asked Yoren if ravens flew from Moat Cailin. "Some," he said. "Lords gathering swords. War's coming hard." She nodded, thanked him, but inside her bones thrummed a harder truth. War had begun the night Bran fell. All else was pieces sliding toward their slots on the board. Miles to the east, in the ruin of Harrenhal's Godswood, a man cloaked in shadows knelt before a weirwood stump, its face long ago chopped away by Aegon's fires. He sprinkled iron shavings into the pool, murmuring prayers foreign to Westeros. Flames guttered in braziers ringed by sellswords sporting lion badges. "The boy still lives," he told the embers. "The wolf pup rides south with swords. The girl hides among crows." Emberlight painted his grin. "We heard them where fire waits." The brazier hissed as iron sank. Beyond those smoldering walls, Robb Stark's vanguard clashed with Ser Jaime near the Whispering Wood.
Swords sung, men cried, horses screamed.
Robb's dirk found the Kingslayer's hand, and gray winds howl shattered moonlit branches. Victory tasted of blood and pine sap, but Robb felt hollow until Theon pressed a torch into his grasp, pointing at the captured Lion of Lannister. In the flicker, Robb saw truly. Not a monster but a man in golden rusted mail, jaw clenched, pride bleeding. Yet the price of triumph weighed heavier. Hundreds of corpses rotting in the tall grass. Robb ordered fires built to honor friend and foe alike, remembering Bran's plea to bring father and Arya home. Each flame crackle echoed the vow. News of the victory streaked north on raven wings, reaching Winterfell at dawn. Maester Luwin read the scroll while Bran watched Summerchase light ash flakes drifting from brazier. When he heard of Jaime's capture, Bran felt a surge, half triumph, half dread. For each piece unhorsed, new perils took the field. He asked Luwin to pen reply urging caution, speak of unseen corridors beneath castles, then insisted on adding postscript in his own hand. Arya rides with crows northward. The roots guide her. Trust the leaves. Luwin blinked but inked the parchment. That night Bran fell into deepest dream yet. He stood upon a spire of black ice rising above swirling snow. At its summit flickered a pale blue flame. He stepped closer, then saw it was not flame but a single eye, unblinking, ancient. From behind, soft footsteps approached. He turned expecting Arya's fierce grin, but found instead a girl of perhaps 12, hair like obsidian, eyes reflecting entire starfields. "Who are you?" Bran asked. "Leaf," said the child, though she seemed not wholly a child, nor wholly flesh. "I walk before the wolf and the sword." Bran felt heat at his spine, saw Arya emerge from swirling snow, needle aglow with faint starlight. She joined him beside the spire, gaze steady on the blue eye. "What does it mean?" she asked. "That winter comes for all paths," Leaf replied. "But children of the forest sowed seeds long ago. One is sight." She touched Bran's brow. "One is steel tempered by water and will." She touched Arya's sword. "Guard each other, or the night will swallow the song." Wind rose, scattering snow that hissed like whispers. When Bran blinked, Leaf was gone. Only the blue eye remained, sinking into darkness. He woke gasping, hand reaching for quill, but the image burned beyond paper. Arya at his side, needle shining, an eye of winter watching. Arya jolted awake beneath sopping canvas, gasp mirroring Bran's. Hot Pie mumbled in sleep. Yoren snored softly. Outside, dawn crept pink along river fog. She drew needle and studied its edge. Moon thin, glimmering faint though no sun yet touched it. For an instant she fancied the steel shimmered with starfire. She whispered, "I will guard. I swear it." The blade drank her oath without sound. When they rolled northward hours later, the world still smelled of rain, but somewhere under that scent danced a sharper promise, electric and wild. War raged east and south, but here on the King's Road a girl disguised as a pauper rode a wagon of doomed souls, and the gods rode with her, old as roots, bright as dawn on fresh snow. She could feel their presence thrumming through every hoof-fall, a cadence older than drums, a rhythm tying her breath to Bran's, her heartbeat to the vast hush beneath the weirwoods. Beyond the next ridge waited still more miles of mud, chance crossings with enemy scouts, nights of hunger and fear and steel. But Arya settled against the cart's planks, eyes fixed on storm-cleared sky, and for the first time since fleeing King's Landing she allowed a small smile to bloom. The road under everything, her secret road, ran true. When dusk again cloaked their campfire, she drew needle to dance alone among sparks. Each thrust etched a vow visible only to the heart trees watching far away, to cut lies from truth, to sever dark from dawn, to carve a path for Bran's dreams to walk unshadowed. Sparks arced, died, and rose as embers in the breeze, drifting north like red leaves against twilight's deepening blue. In Winterfell's quiet hall, Bran lifted his face to breeze swirling through arrow slits. A single ember, impossible this far, floated before his eyes, glowed once, and vanished. He smiled, knowing somewhere the sword of his protector sang beneath the same sky. And high upon the wall, silent for centuries, a horn sat beneath layers of frost. No man touched it, yet that night a thin crack appeared along its rim, as if something within stirred at last. The wolves still ran,